Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. Isak, thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders. You have a very interesting story and company right now. So you spent 3 decades in heavy industry and tech. What pulled you from this and got you into advising leaders and building ICA?
So thanks a lot for welcoming me on the show. It's a privilege to be on your show, Jerome. So what really, it's 30 years of experience and you build up certain knowledge that you would like to share with organizations in improving their operations itself. And I think over time, having the ability to work globally, uh, not only as from a consulting perspective, but also in starting businesses and working with big corporate organizations. It provides a platform where it's much easier, due to one's experience, to advise different leaders. So yes, I'm operationally very involved in AICAdata.com, a startup, and one of I've built business, I've bought businesses. This is sort of my flagship in swan song. Uh, so yeah, if that answers your question.
It does. I'm a bit curious to understand what, pulls someone from a director's position, right, in like bigger companies, like particularly important roles that you had in those big corporate jobs, to start your own consulting, but also implementing operationally with your company. Like, what pulls you out of this and gets you to start a career as an entrepreneur and a business founder?
Okay, so as I said, I've started company, I've bought companies, I've closed companies down, I've been around the block. The the
Fair
nice
enough.
thing when you work for yourself is that you are able to, how can I say, bring innovative ideas to the table. Lots of organizations, if you only deal with one organization, there's sometimes, call it this antibody protection system, where the organization don't necessarily want to change and they don't realize it. Now, having the ability to work across industries globally, I can share the information, but I'm not bogged down with operational issues necessarily within those organizations. And the level of experience that one picks up by working with multiple organizations, you can share the ideas, you can share what works in one organization with another one without obviously sharing trade secrets. And it's more about operational efficiency where this comes in.
So tell us a bit more about that. Like when you walk into a manufacturer or a minor company, what's the core data problem that you help them solve? Like what problem do you solve with ICA?
Okay, so the first bit is actually more identifying, because you can't solve a problem if you don't identify it. And interesting enough, in my younger years when I did my MBA, I came across um, economic theory called transaction cost economics, and I think it was Williamson that still he got a Nobel Prize for that. I also come from a family where my father was at 2 doctorates in economics, and my brother. So economics is a big thing. But let's talk about the theory without going too much into depth. Problems within organizations is finding. In other words, how do I find information from a procurement perspective? You might say, how do I find a new supplier or the best price? So that's one of the things that one looks at. The other part is, what is the hierarchy of the firm? The bigger the hierarchy, the more complex, and your coordination cost is much higher. So that I use as fundamentals. And I sort of say, okay, if I understand the organization, first view, what do I get from this? In the meantime, we also built a product called the AICA AI Navigator, where I take all publicly available information about the organization, put it into perspective that when I do have a discussion with these leaders, I don't have to research their company. The old consulting model was very much I come, first of all, I come to you and I say, okay, I want to do a consulting job. I release 30 consultants on top of you. And after 3 months, we write you a big fat report on your company itself. That has changed. When I walk in now, I need to know exactly what your problem is. Leadership now does not have the time and the budget to wait 3, 4, 5 months before you tell them what is wrong. You already need to have a very good idea. Then the next stage is to analyze the internal data, and you find in most cases they're very siloed, which is a clear indication also of the challenges of that the organization has. And then you can pinpoint much easier where the problem lies. And this is what I do on all the jobs that we do.
Okay, so there is a lot of golden nuggets in there. And I'll try to follow up on the things that I'm very curious about. So I very much know what you're talking about when it comes to big reports that you build even before you start, implementing a roadmap or like defining the roadmap even. That's what we used to do at PwC, my former employer. At the same time, though, that's something that I also use in my conversations with prospects. Is like, look, I cannot give you an exact quote or an exact roadmap if I don't look under the hood first, right? I need to understand what you're facing right now, the internal, soup we say in French of what's happening, and then say, okay, best practices in the industry is this. You're facing that in your company because I've looked under the hood, I've interviewed the right people, I've looked at the data. This is what I recommend. Let's implement it together. So, how do you arrive? And I think that's going to be super valuable for B2B coaches and consultants listening to us right now. How do you arrive to a client, a freshly acquired client, with being already aware of the problem that they're facing, the data behind it, and what you need to do? How do you do that practically?
Okay. So how can I say? We started seeing some of our consulting partners that we have in the industry struggling. How can I say? There's not that long roadmap because the ROI needs to be much quicker. So what do we do? Yes, as I said, we built the AI navigator where we extract all publicly available information. And I mean, we look in X, we look in public platforms everywhere. Uh, on data about the company, if they've got company sort of financials or results, if they're listed companies, that is available in the quarterly reviews or the yearly reviews itself. And we extract that data. Now, quite interesting enough, let's take one practical example. Within the annual report, you will see from the chairman of financial chief financial officer, that there is an increase in inventory, and that's in the value of the inventory. Then I immediately know, okay, they might let's compare that against what their sales are, and we can start working. And I don't, the AI does that, works out and sort of say, but you know what, you've got too much inventory. Um, this is where there's a great opportunity where we can focus on. So when we go and we have a discussion with those leaders, we sort of say, not telling them exactly, we ask, do you have an inventory problem? But we already know that. And you will also find that from public platforms, whether it's a Reddit or a LinkedIn, or there's a huge amount of information. We scrape all that information. It's publicly available, so it's not illegal. And our AI puts it into a format that is easy to understand. But now we go directly. If in the chairman's report they're saying, this year we want to focus on sustainability in our development, whether it's climate change or whatever, pick that up. And then say, but how are we going to contribute to that? Okay. How are you going to go greener? That when you walk into the office, you have a very short and sweet and say, I just want to qualify. Is this the inform? Is this a challenge, or is this something that you want to solve? And they normally sort of say, 90% correct. Yes. So we don't give them the full thing. We ask them as well, and then you get a bit more detail. Only then do we go and dig into the data, the actual data, and qualify what we've said and say, okay, now we work a ROI plan out. This is what it's going to cost you. This is the benefit. Because most of the larger organizations, well, everybody, if you speak to me as well, I don't care about, I care about ROI. How much am I going to bring efficiency into the business? The other side that we have nowadays with vibe coding, I mean, to give you a practical example, now I can't code, okay? But I do need, I do understand what answers I want. And to build a prototype in the past would have been, yeah, it can be 6 to 8 months. I can build a prototype in an afternoon now. And when I have a discussion with you, you can say, do you know what, Isak? You 20% out on this. No, this is not right. And we can adapt it immediately. 15 minutes later, I've got to adapt it. And so you can't build enterprise on it. Very clear. You can't build enterprise systems. You've got to use your normal, um, how can I say, system architecture to build, but at least you get to an answer. Otherwise, you go 6 months down the line in development, and it's in the wrong direction.
So there is this thing about lawyers, right, where they do not ask a question that they don't know the answer in advance, and I like that you're doing that with potential clients because it shows that you've done your homework, but you don't just serve it to them; you let them come to you with that. Would you recommend all consultants to do that work beforehand, of like using an AI or any other tool to get as much information as possible before the first meeting with the client, so that they come informed rather than asking those questions was genuinely not knowing? Is that something you'd recommend B2B coaches and consultants?
Absolutely. I mean, yes, I started in sales, and in the past, when you did prospecting and stuff like that, you didn't have all that information. Nowadays, I do not believe you can be successful because, especially on senior leadership levels, they don't have time. Don't come and tell me you're going to research my company for 3 months and you're going to charge me X amount of dollars per hour. You need to already be running up and running. Now, the tools are available. Why should you not use it? Are they 100% correct? No, it's AI. AI is never 100% correct, but it does point you in the right direction, does do the heavy lifting. And based on that, you can move forward.
Love that. So at AICA, Isaac, who actually buys your work? Like, who is it that you're trying to get in front of, and who's the decision maker that's gonna say yes, we're gonna work with you, Isaac?
Okay, so quite interesting. We developed a partner model. So we've got partners on 6 continents now at the moment, and you can say that we actually the extra arrow in their quiver. So they already have established relationships with clients that has challenges. So they already understand the client environment. At the back end, yes, we use our AICA AI Navigator to provide their salespeople with sheets. In other words, it's much easier when they go into a discussion, so they don't have to have a deep understanding of product data and systems. They can get right to the problem with the client and get a buy-in. So the type of clients that it's either financial managers or IT or CTOs that request the information, especially when you look at system migration, moving from on-premise to cloud. So again, we've got some really good partners in that environment. Now, maybe just to mention SAP, there's a lot of movement from on-premise to SAP HANA. Uh, Doing the product data cleansing and classification uh, is not something that is necessarily within the knowledge base or within the solution side of the different implementation partners. And that's where we come in and help. Yes, we do get large organizations that approach us directly. Some of your biggest global brands do work with us. Um, and there I advise more on a strategic level, and we look at what are we going to build on top, because your foundation is the clean, enriched product data. And maybe to bring that into perspective for the audience, uh, your you've got your product data database. So this is where your product data lives. And then you've got your business application, which might be your enterprise resource planning or your enterprise asset management or your master data management system or your PIM system. We sit in the middle and we call it a product data intelligence platform. Now, none of the business platforms would work efficiently, or anyway, if you want to get more efficiency out of them, we don't replace systems, we make them more efficient. That's where we fit into the whole picture.
Tell me a bit more about this partner model. Like, who are those partners? How do you get them? How do you find them? How do you convince them to work with you and to, propose your solution? And who's the final client? Who's the actual buyer of this?
Okay. So interesting. It did take us more than 4 years. And we've had some failures in partners to, how can I say, get the model to work efficiently, because there needs to be a benefit for the partner, but there needs to be benefit for ICA as well. So we refined the model, and there's different partner engagements. The one side is software vendors. Now, we don't have directly at the moment software vendors, and that might be a ERP system or enterprise asset management system with APIs where we directly plug into their ecosystem that they can do all their updates in there. What we have been able to do, the next level of partner, is software implementation partners, because they sit with a challenge when they do the migration or with data discrepancy. So there we've been successful with software implementation partners. And then we've got business process optimization partners. This is people that go in and improves supply chain efficiencies or procurement or warehouse or logistics or just in general business process optimization consultants. We also have so there we also have very good partners, but we also have software development partners that is coming more and more to the fold, where they've got to provide solutions to various clients, and they need the data to do the cleansing before the predictive analytics can take place. So that's the next one. We've got commission partners and then marketplaces. So I would say within the next few months, from a marketplace perspective, because a marketplace sits with a challenge where they receive a lot of information from different suppliers and it's not consistently the same. So, how do you do a comparison between product X and product Y if the attributes and the descriptions are not similar, that you can do a real? Because you don't only want to compare on price, you want to compare on the technical functionality. So, maybe to answer in short, our website does give a quite a lengthy explanation on how that works.
Hmm. No, I love it. So software vendors, business process optimization partners, software development partners. The reason I'm asking this is I think this is an underlooked way of getting new business as B2B coaches and consultants, like a partner referral system where you get people to do the selling for you. Now, I'm gonna go a bit deeper into this, Isaac, if you don't mind. How do you, and especially since you mentioned that you had some failures, which makes sense, right? When you implement a new acquisition system, you always go through failures before you get it to work. But so now, how do you decide who to work with? How do you know, hey, yes, this person is going to be able to represent my company properly? Because at the end of the day, this is what it is as well, right? You have someone doing the talking for you, and you'd rather them not talk bad about your product. Understand it as well, right? It's not like it's obvious. I understand the outcome. It's very easy to understand, but like, how does it work? How to sell it? So that's a very long-winded question to say, how do you select the right ones? What are the lessons that you've learned through the failures? And how do you find new partners now that you know are going to deliver on bringing you new business?
Okay. So as I said, the beginning was difficult. Um,
Yeah.
Finding the right people, and we put a lot of training into the partners as well. And it was called a manual training. In other words, it would be one-on-one training their salespeople, training their technical people, identifying projects with them. Nowadays, it becomes easier I'm fortunate that on my LinkedIn profile, I've got nearly 23,000 people. So when I publish something, at least the following is allowing, and people are coming to us and asking us if they can become partners. Now, recently, in the next few months, the challenge that I always, or that we had in the past, training partners, we developed a platform called the AICA Academy. So the different levels of partners can go in, and it's like a learner management system where people can train at their speed, but we can see their progress and we can provide their leadership within the company and saying, the reason why you're not selling is your people are not trained, or this person needs a bit more help. So that way it makes it much easier. So to answer your question, nowadays we find that people come to us, which is great. We didn't have that in the beginning. We contacted hundreds of different people, and some people would, because it's also providing leads that we can hold their hands and sort of say, this is a good company. Let's go, let's do a data investigation, let's do a POC, let's do the project, let's do the API integration. Does that answer your question?
It does, 100%. I love this. And again, it shows that you have to put in the work at the beginning, right? Especially at the beginning when you don't have an acquisition channel yet. You probably, like many B2B coaches and consultants, rely on referrals mainly. So you have to do the outreach. You have to do the one-on-one training. You have to make sure that they understand the product properly and that they are going to be able to sell it. And as you build the brand, then you're going to get people coming to you. But that's a longer term play. That's a multiple year play. So I like that a lot. I'm still not 100% clear, and I want to make sure that the audience can grasp it properly as well. Who's the final decision maker then? So those software vendors, development partners, the business process optimization partner, who is it that they are selling to at the end of the day? And how does the setup, and do you jump in at some point as well to, do the crossing of the finish line? How does it work?
So again, the industries where we strongest with the greatest knowledge is MRO, maintenance, repair, and operations. So
Interesting.
who uses MRO items? Companies that produce things. In other words, machines that eat spare parts. Now, that can be mining, oil and gas, it can be automotive manufacturing, anybody that manufactures, they sit with a challenge. So, that is the type of organizations that you get that can make use of our services. So, it's important that the partner will then have a discussion with the existing customer base in that environment, and their salespeople might speak to their logistics manager or their supply chain manager or their head of IT. Um, but the great thing, the partners understand the local way of working, if that makes sense. So again, the type of French that they speak in France and the type of French that they speak in Quebec is different. Those nuances is already work, and that's why we could really, in less than 6 months, jump into three continents. One of the newest partners that and the announcement will be in the press soon. They're in 55 countries. Um, and they understand how those people and the cultures work. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. This is awesome. So MRO and director of ITs are the ones who are going to make the final decision. And because you have the right network of partners, I love that because I suspect those are not small companies that you're targeting, but you're very much focused on the local specificities that you've trained and that probably your partners know about to properly arrive and say, hey, this is the problem that you have at the local scale. This is how it impacts the global scale. This is how we can help. I love this. So one of the things that I learned during my days at PwC, close to your home, actually, Isaac, it was when I was in Belgium and learned Dutch over there. So the partner at the time taught me everything I know about consulting. And he was like, okay, Guillaume, there are two types of consultants, two types of successful consultants. You have the hunters and you have the farmers. And he was like, I'm a hunter. I love to hunt. I love the smell of fresh blood in the morning, and I love to go after new business. But the consultants that make the most money are the farmers, the ones who are able to take an initial engagement, over deliver, and then scale it to a multiple year, multiple layers project that's gonna continue for like multiple generations almost. in your particular case, like once you arrive and you fix that data problem that MROs and head of ITs might have, how do you make sure that you retain that clients, continue to deliver value, and work with them for multiple years? How do you do that?
Okay, so the good thing is you can do on a mass scale, you can do product data cleansing, enrichment, creation, and comparison on a project basis. That's where our consulting solutions come in. What is great is data doesn't stay clean because human beings are involved, and human beings have
Now,
typos, and so that problem. So we've had in the past. I mean, I'm dead honest with you, and you get people that say, "Okay, do the project," and then when the project's finished, they say, "No, no, we're not
of
going to
course,
carry on."
of
But
course.
in 6 months' time, the problem comes up again because again, the growth of data and the volume of information that we have within businesses exponentially grows at a rapid rate. There's one specific point that I also have to make. And in the beginning, what we found, certain people said, "No, I'll use ChatGPT. I'll fix it." Yeah, no, no, don't worry. Our models are trained on specific data sets. Your Gen AI models have a 30% accuracy. Okay. And they give you a different answer every time that you ask it a question. Ours is specifically trained and fine tuned. So we've got above 80%. So what we have seen, some people go and they say, "Ah, no, don't worry. We think we can do it." And then they play with it. The challenge then, when you create synthetic data that is wrong, to go and fix that, I've got to go right back to the beginning. And we're starting to see some of those things coming to the fold. The other thing is enterprise level. If you fix 500 items, 1,000, 5,000 items. But doing that by hand is not a problem. When you start talking about 50, 60, 70 volumes, that becomes a challenge. And quite interesting, this morning, we have just hyperscaled on our classification tool. So when we started this, sorry, I'm taking a little bit of a longer because I need to bring this
That's
point
good.
of enterprise scaling in. 4 years ago, when we did UNSPSC classification, it took 3 days to do 14,000 items. Okay,
With
we
your
with
tool.
yeah, without tool.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, as we migrated, okay, up till a week ago, we could do 10,000 items an hour. Okay,
Hmm.
within the next 3 to 4 months, we'll do 1 million an hour. Okay, that's through hyperscaling. Now, again, and also having a high level of above 90%, depending on the input data. We just finished a project now where the accuracy was 96%. Now, if a human has to do that, a human can do 120 a day. We can do 1 million an hour, and we will keep on scaling so we had some really interesting meetings this morning with some of the cloud providers to be able, because parallelization, having that infrastructure and understanding it, that's why it's important. Doing 10 or 15 or 20 or 100, it's not a problem. When you hyperscale, it is a challenge.
I have a curveball for you, Isaac, which is a baseball analogy. I don't know what's the most popular sport in the Netherlands. Is it hockey? I don't know how to make this analogy in hockey. Anyways, I'm sure
Sailing,
you can understand.
sailing. But remember, as a South African, our most important sport is rugby.
Rugby, here we go. So I still don't have a good analogy for rugby, but you'll get me. So you can do 1 million outputs. Is it per hour or per day?
Power.
Per hour. This is insane. At a 80% accuracy, right? And I suspect for those companies, 80% is great. But what do you do of the 200,000 per hour that are going through the cracks then? Because you're going to need, if a human can make 140 something per day, you're still going to need a lot of human to re-go through those 200,000 outputs that are not perfect. How do you
Okay,
do
so,
that?
so that's quite interesting. So the first run you can do, and you get an accuracy level. Now we can bring in and say, okay, there's 10 or 15 or 20%. Can you do it by hand? No. We have, first of all, the understanding, because our machine learning models understand the context, but we look at different columns of the data and sort of say, do you know what? Let's focus on these words. We're seeing discrepancies. Uh, let's talk about Allen keys. They have various. We've got a quality score. Then we can independently go and question those items, and again run it through the system and further enhance it. I'm not going to go into the deep technical side, but we able to now do that at scale as well. But the first run shows us where the challenges lie. The second run, and it might be a third and a fourth run, but then that's why we got this one client to 96%. I believe when we finish, we'll go to 95%. Is human in the loop needed? Yes, of course. And we have a team of catalogers or specialists. It takes them much longer, but at least you don't have to do a million items. You can do a much lower volume, and it costs far less and it's much quicker.
Right. So Isaac, clearly you're cruising right now. You've gone through some hiccups and some failures, right? We discussed it, but that's what every business has to go through. And you're about to like develop and put in production some quite upgrades of your product. Where do you feel stuck right now? The reason I'm asking you this question is for the B2B coaches and consultants listening to us right now, they might be stuck at the same point. And I think it's always interesting to see how your peers are thinking about a specific problem and how you, of course, gonna overcome it and what's your thought process around it. So where do you feel stuck right now that you think by unlocking, you're gonna be able to go to the next level?
Okay, so up till this morning, I was stuck on hyperscaling, getting from above 20,000 an hour to a million an hour, because that means we need 3,300 virtual servers and having the server availability. So I was stuck this morning on that side. We're not stuck anymore.
No longer.
And,
Congratulations.
it's taking these bite sizes and analyze the problem and say, but there is somebody out there that knows the answer. Why would I try to solve everything myself? I can't. So the ability then to have the right contact network, and I'm dead honest with you as well. I also go into the chat GPTs and I say, listen, where do I find this company that can help me solve this problem? And then I found the people and say, well, quite interesting. That's how some of the clients, some of the big global corporates, a big farming manufacturing OEM, is found us via Copilot. They didn't go to Google. So I use that methodology as well in finding answers and finding the right people, because AI can't solve everything. You need people and experience to help you to solve those problems. If that answers it.
It does. So what problem are you asking ChatGPT to help you solve right now?
Okay, so one of the things that we're busy doing is the ability. So I talked about this agentic AI classification tool that we have. Now, what we would like to do, so it's API, you can link in via application interface, or you can via self-service interface, you can do that. But now I need to understand, I want to be able to white label that and provide it to all my partners. We'll roll it out in the next 6 months. In other words, you can now provide classification as a service, and it will be white labeled to you. So fundamentally, I needed to understand the challenges. Okay, the one thing, the payment gateway is not a problem. So Stripe can handle both, um, from a transactional side, when a client comes in, pays on a credit card, wants to do the classification, buys their credits, but that it then also switches to the partner that they already get their money, because you don't want accounts. There's no, the day of having 30-day accounts on a self-service platform. You're trying to take that complexity out, because then you can provide better pricing. Otherwise, you've got debtors, you've got all the old type of things working. So it did take me time to work through here, understand the challenge and the problem, which we have partly resolved and that's why over the next 6 months, well, sooner we'll go out to the market and say, do you want to generate money from our platform and make your own margin. You've got your own customers, you've got your own relationships. We'll white label it and provide it to you. And what is it going to cost you? Pay for use. There might be a small subscription, but pay for use. No, we're trying to stay away of lots of upfront cost and lots of licensing and things like that. It must be frictionless. We really, and that's why in our slogan, complexity simplified, we need to work on new business models and new ways of taking friction out of the system.
Isak Marais, ladies and gentlemen, Isak, this was an absolute masterclass. Thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders. If people want to find out more about you, AICA, what you do, the hyperscale product that you just developed, where should they go?
They can go to our website, AICAdata.com, AICA Data.com, and you can fill in a application there, or go to my LinkedIn profile, chat to me via LinkedIn. A lot of my interactions are via LinkedIn anyway.
All the links in the description. Isak, thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders Podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.